growth of 2.1% in the year gone by. The Reserve Bank of India's data has showed this. In the last quarter, January-March of FY24, sales growth stood at 6.9%. Now, in a significant move aimed at bolstering workplace safety for women, the Ministry of Women and Child Development, under the leadership of Union Minister Srimati Annapurna Devi, has launched the new She Box. The centralized platform is designed to streamline the registration and monitoring of complaints related to sexual harassment in the workplace. Meanwhile, Bharat's stock market has seen a surge in participation, with female investors now making up to 22% of the total number of investors, according to the National Stock Exchange and its officials. The shift reflects a broader stand of increasing retail involvement in the market, with 69% of the investors under 40 years of age. The director of the All India Institute of Ayurveda has said that the role of AYUSH, Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha and Homeopathy has as a significant soft power in Bharat, presenting vast opportunities for economic growth and international exports. Well, that's the stories from around the world and also stories about a rising Bharat, ladies and gentlemen. Now, a quick excerpt of what we bring to you on this edition, this Monday evening edition. Our top focus, the controversy surrounding IC-814, the Kandahar hijack OTT series on Netflix. Netizens remain on a warpath. Top government sources have called it a very critical issue involving sentiments of the people. What went wrong with the OTT series? Was there a clear attempt to vilify a community? That's the top debate and discussion on the right stand tonight. Meanwhile, pro-case separatist group has honoured former Punjab Chief Minister's killer in Toronto, New York and California, and the Five Eyes remain silent. Why this brazen attempt to embolden Break India forces, we ask. Exclusive inputs here on this edition of The Right Stand. Now, anti-Hindu narrative is also brewing in Bangladesh, festered by a radical group there, the Jamaat-e-Islami. We get you the details, and not just anti-Hindu narrative. So-called rights groups are also peddling an anti-Bharat narrative on how Bharat caused Bangladesh's flood havoc. But the unfounded claims have been fact-checked. And a story that has caught both national and international attention for almost a month now, the RG Kaur rape and murder issue. More sensational audio tapes show the kind of clout the former principal actually wielded. Let's now get across and focus on the big story. The controversy surrounding the OTT series showing IC-814 Kandahar hijacking incident in December 1999. The central issue revolves around the portrayal of the terrorists. They were Pakistanis, they belonged to a radical outfit, but their names, they had used code names. They used names like Shankar, Bhola, Doctor, Burger, etc. And these have been interpreted as an attempt to obscure the real identities of the terrorists and their affiliations with Pakistani terrorist groups. Now, the claim is that the series is a vile attempt to try and whitewash a terror act and also vilify the Hindu community by assigning these Hindu names to the terrorists. Now, what's the truth? Where are the facts? We'll get into that in just a minute.
Nobody thinks that there were some people from India who did the hijacking. So how the people have Hindu names in that movie, I don't know. But I'm very, very happy that the INV Ministry and the Government of India has taken cognizance of this and has summoned Netflix.
Let's go straight across to our guest and take this conversation forward. With me in the studio is Major Gaurav Arya, defense analyst and also founder of the Chanakya Forum. Good to have you with us, debuting here on The Right Stand. Kamru Chaudhary, political analyst, is with us. But first, I'll go across to Kanchan Gupta, who's a senior advisor in the INB ministry. But there is a close attachment or perhaps a connect with 1999 IC-814 for Kanchanji, because he was the OST to Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee then, and he had a ringside view of what was going on at that time. He was a member of the NSA board, working closely also with the National Security Advisor Brajesh Mishra ji, and he has blogged about this sometime back in 2008. Kanchanji, namaste. So I read your blog, which you have posted again. It had come out in the Pioneer at that time in 2008, and you believed that Mr. Jaswant Singh was very falsely vilified or made the villain of the piece. But there was a larger story connecting it to this OTT series. Do you believe the OTT series has violated and the call by the INB ministry is right, and that the platform Netflix needs to explain itself, given what happened then?
Yeah, number one, Anand, it's not just about a series on an OTT platform. We are talking about an incident, a very major terrorist incident, which India had to cope with, and we had to cope with it almost single-handedly. There was nobody who stepped forward to help us, and to sort of trivialize it, to make it into a theater of the absurd, and to suggest that there was some sort of a Stockholm syndrome that had developed between the terrorists and the crew and the pilot, and that the people were so relaxed that they were playing Antakshari, and no reference at all is made to the utterly mindless cruelty of the men who hijacked that flight. No attempt is made to establish that it was planned and executed by the Pakistani agency ISI. And these are all facts in the public domain. I mean, although a lot of it remains classified, and as I have said, that I have not even gone near what is classified, but the facts which are in the public domain make it abundantly clear that it was an ISI operation, that it was a pre-planned, I mean, it is an operation which was planned over a long period of time.
But Kanchanji, here are one or two arguments and your thoughts before I bring in Major Gaurav Arya and also Kamru Chaudhary here. One is that this series is based on or is an adaptation of the book Flight of Fear, which was biographical, written by the pilot himself, Devi Charanji, and also co-authored by Srinjoy Chaudhary, who is also a defense beat journalist, senior journalist. So the book mentions these code names. That's one. The second argument is that these names are mentioned through the series only once, where they use these code names amongst themselves.
Anand, I am not at all on the code names, which is just a passing thing. And in fact, all of us are aware or were aware when it was happening what were the code names that were being used. The formal statement which was made by the Home Minister of India after the crisis was resolved mentions all the names and all the code names that were used.
Yeah.
Now, I am making a larger point. You don't use the real names. The real names are available. Fine. You use the code names. But then you don't carry it forward to establish the ISI link. You just ignore it. You have nothing to say about the Pakistani link. After all, who were these hijackers? Where did they go? They jumped. If you remember the sequence of events when the aircraft was hijacked and standing in Kandahar, I mean, when the final resolution happened, the hijackers jump into a pickup truck and they move in the direction of Pakistan. The three terrorists who were released, they surface in Pakistan. And subsequent acts of terror and carnage carried out by the released terrorists happened from the soil of Pakistan. And then to pretend that Pakistan had no linkage to it. Look, this is a pathetic attempt to recast history, to rewrite history. And this is, and I won't be surprised if Pakistan now uses this series to say, see, we always maintained Pakistan had no role in it, that it was some sort of an inside operation. After all,
will they actually do that? Because there is also the fact that the credits, the end credits, do mention and show the real identities. That's what we're given to understand. I personally have not watched the entire series. But yes, there is this clarification that the 5 terrorists, the people who are their actual names and identities, are revealed at the end of the series. But Major Gaurav Arya, the question is, should this come right at the top? There is a certain level of creative license that the maker can take. That creative license, has it been ably effected or wrongly effected? Is there a effort to try and over glamorize or portray the villains as cool and not actually portray them as real villains, humanize them somewhere?
Thank you for calling me to your show, Anand. As far as this IC-814 is concerned, people do not realize that along the way, what happened was Pulwama. Along the way, what happened was Maulana Masood Azhar, what happened was Jaish-e-Mohammed. And stories go on and on now. Jaish-e-Mohammed is a Pakistani Sunni Muslim Punjabi outfit based out of Pakistan. Similarly, like the Lashkar-e-Taiba. Now, in this particular piece of, you're talking about creative liberty here. I think what has happened is that they have tried to whitewash certain things. You see, it's very easy that you take a script, you put it on the screen, and slowly you try to give weightage to some portion that you want people to believe in any propaganda, in any piece of information warfare. And I'm not saying this is one, I'm just mentioning a fact that in any piece of information warfare, Anand, the first thing is that there should be a grain of truth. There should be a kernel of truth around which everything is woven. And this is exactly what has happened. So there was an IC-814 hijacking. Yes, it was done by Pakistan-based terrorists, and now how do you end up humanizing them? This is storytelling at its worst, Anand. That's all I want to say. And, they should have also brought out the kind of damage that, there were people outside the Prime Minister's house, I believe, at that point in time, the relatives, people who were there, who were crying, wailing, and obviously people were very concerned about their near and dear ones. They thought, once you land in Afghanistan, you're as good as dead because there are Taliban all over. Nobody had any hope of them coming around. Now, we had to free them to get those people back. We had to free the hijackers, right? This was the time to call a spade a spade. True. Not brush it under the carpet.
See, here is the case. Now, Jaswant Singh ji, KC Singh ji, they did phenomenal service to the country by securing what they were able to secure. But you mentioned Masood Azhar. 2001 Parliament attack happened soon after.
Yes.
Right. That was Masood Azhar. That was Jaish. The same using code names or Hindu identities happened nearly just about 9 or 10 years later in 2008 with 2611. So this entire playbook was then repeated, and those terrorists who were let off also came back to hurt the country. Now, should all of this have not been part of the entire story narrative, Kamru Chaudhary? Do you believe that this could have been done? Because this is a generation that's going to watch this, perhaps doesn't know the itihasa, does not actually know how it actually happened.
No, Anand, basically my point will be limited to the series that I saw yesterday, and to the sequence of events that have unfolded on that fateful 1 week out there. Right from Kathmandu to Kandahar, the situation that the co-passengers of that flight and the pilot and the crew, they went through. And based on a book written by a person who has taken the first-hand events. Now you see two major objections that have come out, and I've seen all over the social media. One was about the religious identity of the hijackers and their whitewashing, as Gaurav Arya ji says out here, with their names, projecting them to be Hindu names, particularly in the names of Shankar and Bhola. That's one part of it. The other part is showing Taliban in a very good light. Now, to my limited point, from the Netflix series itself, in the first episode, Anand, if you have seen it, when the raw agent, in Kathmandu, he hears the chief mention Amzad, alias Doctor. During a later episode also, when Manoj Pahwa, the character that he placed based on Dhoval Saab, he addressed the chief as Ibrahim Mia. Now that is all suggesting to the one fact that the religious identities of these people, of these hijackers, of these terrorists were never an intention of the producer or the director to be hidden out here. That's one point. And second point out here is that at that time Taliban did not have any diplomatic relations with our country, and Taliban thought it to be a PR exercise. So when Jaswant Singh landed out there, held hands with the external affairs minister of the Taliban at that time, there was a photo opportunity out there both for Jaswant Singh as well as for the Taliban to be out there. I'm not whitewashing the Taliban nor the terrorist activities on that day, but I believe this entire the discourse or the discussions or the debate that is going on over this Netflix series, I believe is just not warranted out here. Even I can say to anybody out here that if you like it, watch it. If you don't like it, don't watch it.
That point well taken. Kamruji, that point well taken. आपको देखना है, देखिए, you have the power of the button and the click in your hand. That's your choice. But the fact is, sir, when you have facts like Major Gaurav Arya was saying, how you dress up the facts and how you try and create a particular narrative and aura of certain characters, certain elements, you deliberately. Now, is this chronicled anywhere, Kanchan Gupta ji, that the villain was actually playing Antakshari? He was actually worried about the safety and well-being of the crew members? Or is that an effort to try and, use that creative license to perhaps humanize the terrorists? That's one. You don't have any diplomatic relations. They are a number one terrorist organization or most wanted terrorist organization in the world who are perhaps running a government in a particular country. How the world is allowing that, nobody knows. Okay, but their person is shown as somebody who's super cool. Why would you do that?
No, Anand,
has the author of the book written this person who was suave, good looking, fantastic and looked uber cool? Or is this a creative license that was taken by the maker? Should they have done it?
Anand, you have to see it in a different context, a larger context. Number one, you see, we are not talking about an event in history which is then fictionalized and recast or some story or novel which is sort of restructured. In the past, Netflix has done it with Tagore's writings. His famous Kabuliwala was totally distorted. Fine, I mean, there the writer claimed that it was his liberty, his creative liberty. But here we are talking about an act of terrorism. It was an assault on India because India's national carrier was hijacked. And it was an incident that cannot, I repeat, I cannot be trivialized and made into a fictional account as a web series. Now, it is not just about some code names being used. Of course, these code names were used. And nobody is denying that. But what you are doing is you are humanizing them. You are normalizing an act of terror. And you are, as Major Arya said, you are whitewashing history. I use a slightly different term. You are rewriting history. You are absolutely, I mean, I have no doubt in my
or
mind
revising the narrative itself.
That people who are, say, 10 or 15 years old today, they have absolutely no idea what happened between between the Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve that many years ago. 24, 25 years ago. And for them, this becomes the story, this becomes the narrative, this becomes history. Now, do you want it that way? Or do you want, you can do a dramatic interpretation of what happened, be truthful with the facts, be careful about where you are taking the narrative, and at least be intellectually honest, not to distort facts in something as sensitive as a case of hijacking. Now, as Major Arya also said, the story does not end with what happened in Kandahar. The story goes on after that. We amended our anti-hijacking laws. We provided for the death sentence to hijackers. We also adopted a strategic policy on how to deal with hijacked aircraft that could be used as weapons of mass destruction, as missiles
Correct.
targeted to cause mass destruction. So all this would not have happened if it was just a passing incident. No attempt is made to show the cruelty of these hijackers who killed a young man who was returning from his honeymoon in Kathmandu, and his body was just dumped in UAE, where the plane halted. Now, how do you even begin to normalize such beasts?
No. So was that highlighted? The fact that the wife of this person, the widow, was held back till the very end, while all the other women and children, their release was secured. Has all of this been highlighted? Should that have been the play? That how brutal are these people? That they don't mind killing somebody, taking a life just to prove a point, to ensure that the plane lands where they want or take them where they want. Major Gaurav, your thoughts there?
Yeah. So Anand, essentially, I'd like to give you an example. Burhan Wani was the head of the Hizbul Mujahideen. That part is true, and he was a headmaster's son. That part is also true. Now, when you keep on repeating headmaster's son, you normalize and humanize Burhan Wani. That is what has been done in the media for so long. Keep on repeating the fact that he was a headmaster's son, right? Similarly here, you see what has happened here is that it is up to you. You can blur a few things and you can put a sharp focus on some other stuff. You know, whatever you want the focus on, and it is absolutely within the realm of creative liberty that the director or the producers may be exercising. In this case, my worry here is, you know, like Kanchanji is very rightly saying, after that what? You see, and the 15, 20-year-olds today who have no idea what IC814 was, they will pick up this on an OTT platform and this will be history for them. As far as they are concerned, this is history. That is where the danger lies, where you humanize the Taliban, where you humanize the ISI, where you think that, oh, this hijacker and this head of Taliban, they look so cool and this is the way to be. You know, this is what is more dangerous now. That has happened. It has happened 20, 25 years back. That incident is gone. But we see the ripple effects even today. As late as Pulwama, that's what I'm saying. As late as Pulwama, that was a Jaish-e-Mohammed operation. So, you know, we need to consider all these things rather than just saying, oh, I have liberty.
No,
like I said, headmaster's son.
If they've stayed true to the book, then perhaps there would be a fair representation of these facts through the series. Kamru Chaudhary?
Yeah, basically, you know, I don't discount Major Saab's point of view or Kanchanji's point of view out here. But it's always a point of view that some people will want to project, like a propaganda. Like, let's say, if you don't mind, let me cite the examples of the Kashmir files or the Kerala story, how a particular section of the community were demonized because of the work or the terrorist acts of a few individuals or few what you call radicalized elements in the society. But that also needs to be questioned. So is the question out here that through this series, if our Indian youth, if the young generation are being doctrinized with what actually happened in IC814 on the fateful 1 week, then I think so we are questioning the intellect of our youth today. They are as well, let us leave it to them to decide and discuss what actually we should take and what we should not take. Because I don't believe in indoctrination of our youth.
Sir, the indoctrination, this is how it happened, sir. You talked about Jammu and Kashmir. The exodus in 1990, because of a planned ethnic demographic genocide, was called, these people were called migrants. Terrorists were never called terrorists, they were called gunmen or militants. This was the level, and it was always termed not acts of terrorism and violence, but a struggle. So you see how the narrative was twisted, molded to create an impression that the exodus of more than 5 lakh Hindus from Jammu and Kashmir was something that was done by their own free choice, free will. So the Taliban are cool. So that becomes a narrative, and then that's all right. So that perception being stepped is all right. The reaction of a few, sir, the reaction of a few, endorsed by many, endorsed by thousands. That's what is witnessed. Because so far those 5 lakh families have not found their homes back again in Jammu and Kashmir. Whatever be the story. So how many people stood there and tried to highlight what Major Arya, how Major Arya said, what how he was highlighted, how Burhan Wani was highlighted. What was the story or narrative around Afzal Guru, convicted by the courts? What is the story narrative that was built around him? Was there not an effort, brazen effort to humanize him as a professor, as an educator, as a good man, etc., who'd been wrongly done by the law, etc.? Who did that? What was the impression that was being created? What were the chants that were running in the hospital, in the colleges, college campuses, university campuses, based on? So if you leave it to the youngsters to form their, so then you have to leave them with facts, sir. Not facts dressed up with a particular narrative or propaganda. Kanchan Gupta, final word.
Because we are running short on time, I just wanted to clarify a couple of points. One, it was mentioned here that India did not have diplomatic relations with the Taliban at that point of time. Now, the fact is, the Taliban were under UN sanctions, and no country in the world had diplomatic relations with the Taliban, formal diplomatic relations. We were negotiating with them through a UN interlocutor. Now, that is how it happened. And it was not at all an easy resolution that was achieved. And to sort of, as I keep on going back and using the same word, to sort of take something like this and trivialize it and reduce it to a TV soap that has very little resemblance with the reality. I mean, one of the air hostesses is said to have developed a crush for the hijackers, or one of the hijackers. I mean, where are they coming in from? I'm least interested in the portrayal of their religion or the religious identity. I am more on facts, and on facts, I think this doesn't pass any test. And you really can't do this with something that impacted your country so violently for 7 days. I mean, if you had to be there, Anand, in the PMO or at what was then Racecourse Road, to see what was happening 24/7. And the real story, why Jaswant Singh actually went with the relief aircraft, that story has not been told. It shall not be told, because that remains classified.
Well, that's another aspect to it. But spending just another 2 minutes on this, Major Gaurav Arya, the other aspect is that today's government 10 years down the line does not have a policy that will decide what kind of content these OTT platforms will run and show. There is no censor board certification for them because they follow the IT Act of 2021, and I'm subject to correction on this. But in 2022, this was what 2023. This was what was stated in Parliament, that OTT platforms as of now have to follow the rules or the IT Act, under the IT Act, amended IT Act of 2021. The CBFC has got no jurisdiction on OTT platforms. They are supposed to self-censor and self-certify what kind of content this particular product or this particular series will show, and they will disclaim it, put it as a disclaimer there. That's all they've got to do. So the broadcast bill thande baste mein gaya. So who do we then turn to?
No, absolutely. I think the government has to step in, Anand, and the government has to say that, because this causes damage in society, and the society is the government's responsibility. And to the gentleman, who's on the panel, he spoke about the Kashmir files. A very quick word on the Kashmir files. The reality of the Kashmiri Pandits is far, far more terrifying than what was shown in the Kashmir files. The Kashmir files just showed 20-30% of what happened. At length, what they underwent in those ghettos in Jammu, those flea-infested ghettos where they did not have clean water to drink, their children, how they grew up. This entire thing, showing brutality is one thing. The tragedy of the Kashmiri Pandits transcends just what happened in Kashmir at that point in time. It goes beyond. And I would like to say again, what is shown in the movie is a very small part of the terrifying experience of the Kashmiri Pandits. It was much, much more. So people who think that the Kashmir files is propaganda, actually, it is just 20% of what actually happened to the KPs.
Well, wonder the amnesties of the world, the Tistas of the world, did they ever go to the Jagti camp and make documentaries and features of what is happening to them and what's been perpetrated on them? Especially those who are human rights activists and champions. Seriously. Kanchan Gupta ji, but on the information broadcasting and on the government of the day, the broadcast bill is the need of the hour. But it's been sent into cold storage. What the government is going to do when they meet the Netflix head and content head tomorrow, we'll have to wait and watch. But thank you.
Listen, Anand. Listen, Anand, please. Nothing has gone into cold storage. If the broadcast bill is still on the table, the draft is there on the INB Ministry's website. And what we are doing is we are going in for further consultations so that any wrinkles that there may be in the draft can be removed. That is far from being sent into cold storage. Two, as far as OTT platforms are concerned, the Supreme Court of India has repeatedly made this point that the content, the language, the structure, the portrayal of OTT, OTT shows requires some degree of control, some degree of governance. And the question is, who shall do it? The government or the self-regulatory system that exists? If the self-regulatory system does not work, then the IT rules kick in. And if the IT rules will not work, then there will be ultimately a legal framework.
By then, lakhs and lakhs of people have already consumed the content, and that content has been downloaded and saved somewhere. That's why this demon is different from movie being put out on cinema screens. You can stop the broadcast of a movie on cinema screens, but you cannot stop it on digital platforms. So the law has to be faster and far more nimble in terms of coming to fruition and being enacted than how these platforms are currently functioning and the freedom that they have. Are they being judicious? To a certain extent, yes. But for them, what is creative freedom may not be freedom or in the best interest of our country. With respect to pornographic content, with respect to the safety of women or acts and content that can perhaps directly influence how women are treated in society, and with respect to anti-Bharat narrative and what should be never showing our country in poor light. Some of these facts are non-negotiable for any person, any citizen of the country. Those aspects, does this bill today currently cover? Even the one that is currently in the works, does it cover? The jury is out on that. But thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kanchanji, for your time.